in Acts, the second chapter, when the Holy Spirit descended on the apostles, they were given what appeared to be tongues of fire, so that when they preached, even though they were preaching in Hebrew or Aramaic, the barbarians, Scythians, Arameans, the people from all over the Cappadocia, the Romans and Latin, could all understand the apostles in their own languages. It's an amazing miracle, a wonderful event. I imagine if I could go back in time and like Jules Verne, just go back and be part of this moment. I imagine that I'd hear the apostles speak in English in my own ears. It's what the gift of tongues enabled the apostles to do. Every once in a while, I'll hear a story of a Christian just thinking that he's overcome with babbling while he's on a plane. And then it just so happens that a Navajo Indian happens to be sitting next to him and asked him, "Why are you preaching the gospel in my native language of Navajo?" Now, the man had no exposure to Navajo before. He hadn't any idea that he had been speaking in Navajo. But my good friend Phil Saley told me about the validity of this account. You know, he's a sober-minded, trustworthy person as far as I've known him to be over these many years. He's not the kind of man that would just tell me any kind of story, and you know, he's a skeptic like you and me, and prudently seeks not to gullibly just buy into any tale that's sold to him. The gift of tongues that God gives is an amazing gift that allows the few Christians who've been gifted with this wonderful gift, this awe-inspiring gift, the ability to preach about Jesus to people who, because of language barriers that go back all the way to the Tower of Babel, have problems in communicating. I mean, anybody who regularly watches my videos can understand that I have difficulty at times with stuttering, that I have difficulty at times with pronunciation, with articulating the words that are so clearly formed in my own mind, but which sometimes I have difficulty speaking. The wonderful supernatural power of the gift of tongues goes all the way back to the tongues of fire that happened to the apostles on the day of Pentecost. Oh, nearly 2,000 years ago. I'm making this video in 2015. The event occurred around 33 AD, so quickly doing some rough math in my head, that's around 1983 years ago, somewhere there and about. But for the sake of rounding, let's call it an even 2000. It's an amazing event, a supernatural event. And one of the things that I find very fascinating to do is to read the accounts in church history when different preachers of the gospel throughout the history of the church have been blessed with the gift of speaking in tongues, with the gift of supernaturally speaking in a language that's not their own, and to be able to clearly communicate in an understandable way to people whose language they've had no previous experience with or study about in any way that would allow them to be able to do that. It's a wonderful confirmation that the power of God is behind the Christian message. Like any gift, there's a potential abuse for the gift of tongues that should be rejected. But we should also keep in mind that it's not for us to judge another person's servant. Christ himself will be the judge. And that's why I'm very careful not to try and abuse the gift that God has given to some of his people, but fortunately he hasn't given it to me. I think it'd be really cool to have the gift myself, but insofar as I've read the scriptures, I've never been prompted with that particular gift, which is okay. God doesn't grant his gifts to all Christians. Some gifts come to some Christians and not to others, and it would be unbecoming of us to envy the gifts that God's given to another and that he hasn't given to us.